Welcome to MacStories Unwind, a weekly review of everything MacStories and more. This episode is sponsored by MacStadium, and I'm John Voorhees, and of course with me is Federico Viticci. Hey, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
Doing all right. You know, we had a pretty busy week at MacStories, and one of the last things that we had go up on this site this week was an update to the MacStories shortcuts icons. I thought maybe you could fill everybody in if they haven't seen the post. What exactly happened with those icons?
Yes. So there's a new update that is available for free to existing customers, which adds 50 new glyphs to each version of the MacStories shortcuts icons. So if you're not aware of what the shortcuts icons are, it's a set of, now it's 400 unique glyphs, so unique symbols, available in 4 different versions that allow you to customize the icons for shortcuts that you add to the home screen. So from the Shortcuts app, there's the ability to add a shortcut to your home screen and to run it from there, to launch it from there. And you can customize the icon for that shortcut. And our set is designed to give you more options in terms of symbols and icons than what is otherwise offered by Apple by default. And what's unique about the shortcuts icons is that, and here I'm just going to refer to the complete bundle edition. You can purchase the classic version or the color set version separately. I'm just going to refer to the bundle version that contains all of them. You can choose to install icons that sort of resemble the look of the default Apple icons. So it's a white glyph on top of the same color of the shortcut that you pick from the shortcut settings, or you can use monochrome icons, so like a black background and either a white glyph or a multicolor glyph. Those look amazing. If you have a pure black wallpaper on an OLED iPhone, those look fantastic. Or you can choose to use the color icons. So these are multicolor glyphs on top of a white icon, so a white background. And they basically look like sort of apps on your home screen. And so we have 50 more, making the total of unique symbols 400. We added some that were heavily requested by customers, like AirPods Pro, and more productivity icons like folders with different badges and projects. And we have new health and fitness related stuff. We have, trying to think here, more stuff for calendaring and task management. So there's all kinds of additions. There's a post on MacStories where you can see the preview of all the glyphs that we've added to the set. And so, yeah, if you're an existing customer, check your email or just re-download your previous purchase with the same link, and you will get the new file. And there's a folder in there that says plus 50, and that's the update. And if you're a new customer, if you don't own the shortcut icons, we're running a big discount right now on the bundle version. So you can get the complete edition. So all 4 different versions at 40% off for a limited time. I think the discount is ending soon. And also, if you're a Club MacStories member, you get, on top of that 40%, you get an additional 15% off. So if you're a club member, you can go check out at the club open page at club.macstories.net. If you log in with your account, you will get a promo code that you can use to get an additional 15% off on top of the 40% off that we're doing now. So, go check out the new glyphs. I think they're super fun. I'm using many of them myself on my iPhone and iPad home screens. So, yeah, that's what we've been working on. We do have an additional brand new thing that I haven't told anybody, except, I guess, John and Ryan yet. But that's going to be fun, but not there quite yet. We still need a few extra refinements and some extra time, but it should be out soon. So stay tuned, because we're going to have a brand new thing coming out from MacStories Pixel very soon.
Yeah, I'm excited to share that with everybody as well. And, these 50 new icons are really nice, and I like the fact that they reflect the requests of the people who are using them, because that really makes them work really well for the people who have already kind of bought the set and tried them out, and I feel the same way. I mean, I've been using the shortcuts icons for quite a while now, and every now and then I'll do something and work on a shortcut and think, oh, I wish there was X or Y, and I'm a little lucky enough to be able to tell you and Sylvia that right directly and have some input on that. But I know that you guys have been listening to all the customers on this and have really rounded out the set nicely so that it really covers an incredibly wide array of different use cases.
Yeah.
All right. So Federico, let's get into some of the stories and reviews that we did this week. And I want you to tell me a little bit more about Music Smart. But, this is an app from the maker of Music Harbor. And it's really one of those apps that surprised me, and I think this is probably true for you. It surprised me because it's unlike anything I've ever seen before. And in this day and age, 11 years into the App Store and millions of apps, it's pretty hard to surprise us. And this kind of came out of left field, and I absolutely love it. Why don't you explain to the listeners what it does?
Yeah, so Music Smart is the kind of app designed for folks who care about the credits. So music credits, things like who's the producer on this album or this track, who's the person that plays the saxophone or the keyboard in the background. It gives you full credits, which is something that used to be common many years ago, back days when we used to buy music as CD albums. CDs would have a booklet where you could, flick through to read the credits. That included photos and lyrics and full credits for like the audio, the mixing engineer and the mastering engineer and additional instrumentalists that also played on that particular song. And all that kind of information got lost in the transition to first YouTube and then music streaming services. Music streaming services, especially Apple Music, they show you lyrics and they show you who wrote a song, but there's an entire world of additional context that goes way beyond who actually wrote a song and the lyrics that is completely invisible to us right now. There's an excellent article from The Verge last year by Denny Deal. She's the vice president of the Recording Academy, which is the organization that does the Grammys, among other things. And she explained how the state of metadata in the music industry is a complete mess right now, because metadata gets lost all the time, and that results in billions of dollar revenue that just gets lost in translation, basically, because metadata gets lost in the process of like when music goes from the artist to the mixing engineer, to the mastering engineer, to the label, to the publisher, and eventually to the streaming service. Everything gets lost in the process because of all these databases that support different formats. And so metadata is in the state of the industry. There's basically like the only metadata that matters at the moment is like the title of the song, the artist, the album, sometimes the producer, but not always. So go check out that article, definitely. But Music Smart is this new utility for iPhone and iPad that tries to compensate for these problems by talking to multiple online databases that actually have this information, collecting and aggregating all these different data points and presenting them to you in two ways. So you can open Music Smart on your home screen. You can use the main app. And right now, the main app is not a great experience because it can only show you a list of albums from your music library, whether they come from Apple Music or you sync them from a computer. And you can only browse this list of albums alphabetically. There's no other view or sorting options. And when you can open an album and you can drill down into the detail page, and there you will get the additional information. But really the best way to use Music Smart is as an extension from music. You can share any album or any song with Music Smart, and it'll show you additional details for that album, individual tracks contained within an album, and the artist of the selected album or song. And what's especially impressive is all the credits that you can see for Apple Music tracks inside the extension. So as I mentioned in my review, you can see producers, engineers, publishers, all kinds of additional performers that are not official band members, but still played an essential role in the making of a song. All of that is included in the Music Smart extension. And if you care about this kind of stuff, this is incredible. But in addition to that, it goes beyond what, say, CDs used to offer years ago, because Music Smart can also tell you, and this is something that happens to me all the time, by the way, which song has sampled the song you're listening to. So this happens to me all the time. Like I listen to a song and I'm like, I can hear a sample in the background and I know this comes from somewhere. I can't quite put my finger on it, but I know that it's another song from somebody else. And Music Smart gives you this information. So it tells you, this song that you're listening to, does it contain any samples? And it also tells you the opposite. Has this song been sampled by somebody else? Which is incredible. And it also shows you covers and remixes. So it's like this one unified dashboard for credits and additional songs related to the one you're listening to. If you're the kind of music nerd that cares about this stuff, this is a $2 utility. It's $1.99 on the App Store, and I cannot recommend it enough. Doesn't surprise me that it comes from the same developer of Music Harbor, because Music Harbor is one of the best music apps that I have on my phone that I use every single day to check out new music releases. So obviously the developer's name is Marcos Antonio Tanaka. Obviously he knows what he does, right? It's music is
absolutely.
He really is an expert here. So Music Smart has to be one of my favorite new releases in a while.
I think too, Federico, that this is a fantastic example of the power of native apps, because what he's doing in this app is drawing on, I don't know what it is, it's like 3 or 4 different web databases that you could go and you could visit each one of them individually and find this information by typing a song into a search box. But by pulling that data into a native app that works with an extension, it's just there at your fingertips automatically and all compiled in a neat and tidy and well-organized way that makes it very easy to browse. And I know that I love getting this information, but I wouldn't go looking for it myself. But having it right there as an extension inside Apple Music is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. So Ryan had a story this week about Drafts 20, and it's hard to imagine. This app has been around for so long. Greg Pierce has done a fantastic job with it. It's actually on version 20 at this point, which is kind of mind-blowing in a way. But what this version does primarily is that it incorporates wiki-style linking. So what you can do is you can enclose the title of another draft that you've saved before in double square brackets, and that will then link back out to that. So you can kind of create your own personal wiki of information that you've collected wherever whatever it happens to be. But it goes deeper than just linking to other drafts within the app. You can also link to workspaces, which is another, kind of power user feature of the app. And you can link to things like searches. So you could kick off a search on Google or whatever it happens to be. Now, this syntax is similar to things that are used in apps like Bear, but it's really nice to see it come to drafts. And it kind of makes drafts potentially a kind of personal database app. It's not on the level in terms of functionality of something like Keep It or DevonThink, but it is an interesting alternative to some of these web-based ones, like maybe Roam Research or Notion or whatever it happens to be. It's just a more text-based version of those kind of things, which if text is your thing and you don't need to store other sorts of data like images and whatnot, this is a good solution to look at. And I think it's an interesting direction for the app.
Very nice. Very nice. We also saw the release of iOS 13.5 and iPadOS 13.5. And of course, on the iPhone, this is an important one because it's the COVID-19 update, essentially. So this new version of iOS adds support for the new exposure notification API that Apple and Google worked on. This will enable contact tracing depending on your local government. This feature will require an official app to be installed on your iPhone. And that app will be able, if your local health agency or government decides to use the Apple and Google system, you will see the app listed there, and you will be able to give that app access to the Bluetooth-based contact tracing that iOS and Android can now perform. In addition to that, there's also easier Face ID unlocking when you're wearing a mask. So Face ID bypass means that the iPhone can now detect if you're wearing a mask. And so rather than making you wait for Face ID to fail before ringing up the passcode screen, now the passcode screen will come up immediately without having you wait like that second, that extra second for Face ID to fail. And I tested it this week because we can now go out again. We need to wear a mask, of course, because that's the right thing to do. You should always wear a mask. And it's very nice that now when I try to unlock my phone, the passcode screen comes up not immediately, but much, much more quickly than before. You can also, another, I guess, lockdown-related new feature is you can now turn off the zoom-in animations for FaceTime calls. So it used to be that in FaceTime, with the new group FaceTime that they launched, it was a couple of years ago, must have been, right?
Right.
The tile, the window of the person that was currently speaking will like zoom in, and the others would zoom out and get smaller. And I guess that Apple realized now that the usage of FaceTime calls must have increased exponentially because of the lockdown. They must have realized that this whole zooming in and out thing was kind of distracting. So you can now disable that. You can now disable that in settings. And finally, and this is very nice because an intern actually came up with this feature a while back, and this feature is now part of iOS 13.5. There's a new native format for sharing songs from Apple Music to Instagram. So when you now do in Apple Music, you long press a song and select share and select Instagram, you will be taken to Instagram stories, and you will get this new layout with like a preview of the song in the middle of the screen. It's super nice, very nicely done. I used it myself a couple of times. Really nice. I love that there's now this native integration, because I used to like take screenshots of the now playing screen in music and go to Instagram and crop it for stories. Now I can just do the native sharing, and it's so much better.
Yeah, it looks really nice, and it's super easy. A story that I linked to this week was the news that was, I guess, broken by Deadline, who found out that a new Tom Hanks World War II naval drama has been acquired by Apple for the TV Plus video service. This was a movie, it's called Greyhound, that was originally slated to come out from Sony Pictures, I want to say. And what's interesting about this is it was supposed to come out Father's Day weekend in the U.S., which is the third Sunday of June. So really not very long from now at all. And, I presumably the pandemic had a lot to do with this, that it's expected that movie theaters are not going to be fully open by the end of June. And Apple acquired it. And I think what's interesting about it is, we've seen other films, especially smaller indie films, come out on Apple TV and other services, but they've been as rentals. There've been these like $20 rentals, which are first-run movies that didn't end up coming out in theaters in April and May and that sort of thing. But this is a pretty big budget film from a major star with Tom Hanks that is going to be exclusive to TV Plus. So you won't be able to rent this on Amazon Prime. You'll have to have a TV Plus subscription to do it. So I think it just goes to show how serious Apple seems to be getting on getting new content into its service. And I guess along with that this week, we also heard a rumor that Apple supposedly, according to Bloomberg, is starting to acquire old TV shows and movies to create a back catalog, which is something, they just don't have compared to services like Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime.
I'll give you a fun fact, the kind of gold nugget of information that you can only get from me. So this script was adapted by Tom Hanks from a novel called The Good Shepherd, which is this novel by this English author of the name C.S. Forester. But the real name of, C.S. Forester was his pen name. His actual name was Cecil Louis Troughton Smith. like our friend John Smith, friend of the show, Steve John Smith.
I was wondering where you're going with this.
No, that was the thing at the end. Otherwise, I wouldn't have given you the fun fact. So maybe they're related. I don't know.
Maybe. Who knows? We'll have to ask Steve.
So also this week we got the release of new watch bands and new watch faces ahead of Pride Month, which is in June. We now have 2 new Pride watch bands and 2 are they 2 new watch faces? I guess there's 2 of them. Yeah, there's they're part of watchOS 6.2.5. They also require iOS 13.5 to be installed on your iPhone. And personally, you can take a look at the photos on MacStories. Personally, I purchased the Nike band. I think it looks really lovely. The multicolor sport band, it looks very fun, but I'm afraid that's too much color for my wrist. But it does look very fun. The Nike one is a little more in my style, you know?
Yeah, I didn't get either one of these, although I was really tempted by the Nike one. I really like the look of that. I like
it's very good.
It's got all the rainbow colors in the holes.
Yeah, and it's kind of subtle, so it's not as in your face as the other one, maybe. You know, the other one, it's like an explosion of color on your watch band.
It really is. But boy, if you want to grab somebody's attention, that's a good way to do it, because there's a lot of color going on there. You know, we had a related story that you linked, I guess it was after we published Unwind last Friday, and that was David Smith's iOS 7 wish list. And, you know, if anybody knows David, he has created a whole bunch of Apple Watch apps over the years. So there's really nobody better person to create a wish list than Dave, and he has come up with a great list of things. There's, you know, all sorts of things in there, whether it's multiple complications per face type, rest days, true independence from the iPhone. So, you know, he would like a setup process that didn't even involve an iPhone, which I think would be great. And, you know, it took a very long time for the iPhone to reach that point. I think we're getting pretty close to that now with the Apple Watch, and it would be nice to see happen. But, you know, he's got a long list of things that are both kind of user-facing wishes as well as developer-facing issues and wishes. And it's definitely a post worth taking a look at. And we've got a excerpt from it right there on MacStories from last Friday. All right, Federico, let's just do a quick rundown of what happened on the club this week. You went a little crazy with the shortcuts again, didn't you?
Well, not as crazy as last week. I answered some requests, and I also made a shortcut of my own. So the shortcut that I made, it lets you get the file path of any individual file from the Files app, any document, any file that you want to get the complete file path of. You can do from shortcuts without. Here's the difference from a shortcut that I made before. It does not involve any JavaScript, so no scripting. As my old FS bookmarks shortcut, this one takes advantage of a relatively new app that we actually covered last week, Gizmo Pack. So Gizmo Pack is one of these new shortcuts utilities that have come out lately. It's kind of like Toolbox Pro, but even more for like even geekier, if you wish.
Yes.
And one of the new actions of Gizmo Pack is file info. And one of the parameters of one of the properties of file info is file path. So literally all you need to do is pick a file and use Gizmo Pack and get the file path, and then you can combine that with the URL scheme, and you got a launcher for files. So I shared that shortcut in MacStories Weekly, really as a super quick and easy way to get to go from picking a file to having a URL scheme launcher for that file that you can use anywhere. And I also answered some requests I have a shortcut that allows you to use the HomePod as an intercom system. So like you can enter some text, and you can at one of your HomePods speak the text that you typed. I made this for a club member who said, my teenage daughter likes to hide away in her room, and sometimes I want to talk to her, but I don't want to bother her by like opening the door. So like I thought I could use the HomePod as an intercom system. And so that's why I made this shortcut. And there's also like an explanation of how you can get again, URL scheme launchers for individual notes inside of Apple Notes. So yeah, I'm still going through the list of shortcut requests that club members have submitted over the past couple of months. I'm getting there, but I still have a bunch more to share. And yeah, it's always fun to work on this. Because I wouldn't have thought, for example, to use the HomePod as an intercom system, but I guess now I can because I made a shortcut for somebody else and I can use it too.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't have thought of that either. I mean, it's a good way to prank people too, potentially.
Yes,
so
also that.
it's available for all sorts of uses. We had a favorite this week, which was NetNewsWire that Ryan covered, and NetNewsWire, of course, is the RSS client that's made by Brent Simmons and a team of others who are working on it on an open source basis. It's an incredibly solid app. The fundamentals are great. It's fast. It's reliable. It doesn't crash. It doesn't have problems. Great app. I, this week, covered part of my journey in coming up with a new research system for the Mac OS review that I'm going to do this summer. Federico and I have been talking about this a lot. You're going to hear even more about it next week on App Stories and on Unplugged if you're a club member. But one of the things that I set up, and then I actually have abandoned, but I still think it's of use to some people, is a system using Instapaper, IFTTT, and shortcuts to annotate web pages and then export both highlights and comments from those articles and drop them into Apple Notes. So I've got that in there as well. We did a big giveaway of Tower, which is a Git client that I think the developers in the audience were pretty excited about. And we've got a tip from Ryan on using Safari tab controls, which, I don't know about you, but I find those to be some of the most powerful and interesting controls that are in Safari. I mean, they're really great for saving time and doing things that speed up your workflow, but to some people, maybe a little hidden. So it's good to have a tip and remind people that those things are there. All right, Federico, I'm going to take a real short break. I want to thank our sponsor for this episode and for sponsoring all of MacStories this week, and that is MacStadium. Last year at around this time, MacStadium introduced Orca for developers, and it's a really unique platform for compiling and testing macOS and iOS apps. Apps have to be developed on Mac hardware. So what MacStadium has built is a virtualization platform based on standard cloud orchestration tools like Docker and Kubernetes. That provides Apple platform developers with a high-performance, reliable way to run their continuous integration-driven development pipelines. Better yet, Orca has plugins for your favorite continuous integration tools too. Things like Jenkins and GitHub, GitLab, BuildKite, and TeamCity. You could take Orca for a spin too at tryorca.com, where you can get a 2-hour Orca playground to check out how it works. There's more information in the sponsor post this week that we had on MacStories, so I'll link to that in the show notes so you can get all the details. And of course, MacStadium is also a fantastic way to host a Mac Mini. We use it to run MacStories, in fact, and we've got a special deal just for listeners of this show and readers of the site. You can get 2 for the price of 1, 2 months for the price of just 1 single month with a new Mac Mini subscription by using the code MacStories at checkout. There'll be a link in the show notes for that as well. Our thanks to MacStadium for sponsoring both the site and Unwind this week. Okay, Federico, it's time for our weekend picks. Let's dive in. I'm going to let you take the first one since I've been talking for a while.
All right, so something that you should know about me is that I really like silly romantic comedies. Even more so now, where I feel like we could all use a lot of silly, fun, lightweight things. And these types of shows are just the things that my girlfriend and I like to watch before bed, because they put us in a good mood, and they do not require a lot of mental effort. They just, romantic comedies. I think we can all relate to that. So something that we recently discovered, which is kind of funny coming from me, you'll hear the title in a second. So this airs on ABC. There's only 1 season. You can find episodes on iTunes. You can buy them from the iTunes store. So the name of this rom-com is The Baker and the Beauty.
Of course.
And it does tell the story of, it's actually a very a very fun and cool story. So it's an adaptation of Israeli TV show, I think.
Okay.
It's been remade for the US market, I think. The story of this young baker from a family, from a Cuban family that lives in Little Havana in Miami, in Florida.
Uh-huh.
And due to a series of coincidences, the baker falls in love with the beauty. The beauty would be this international superstar that is like the CEO of this fashion brand, like think Kim Kardashian, basically.
Right.
So it tells the story of this unlikely couple and all the events surrounding them. So the reality of like this family that has like they are small business owners, and suddenly one of their sons is thrown into this ridiculous scenario in which is like the boyfriend of this international superstar. It's got that fun mechanic, that fun contrast between like the lifestyle of the rich and the famous and this Cuban family that have a bakery in Miami. So I think the first season will be comprised of 9 episodes, and I think we just watched the episode 6 last night. So they're also like the standard 45 minute long episodes, so it's not the 20-minute sitcom format. And yeah, if you're into romantic comedies, I can recommend this one.
I'm going to have to give this recommendation to Jennifer because she loves your
I
taste
feel
in
like-
television.
Yes, I feel like Jennifer and I could watch many TV shows together.
You
Because
absolutely
Sylvia,
could.
Jennifer, and I, we all watch the same stuff.
You absolutely do. You absolutely do. All right, before you get to your second pick, I want to drop mine in here, which is Devs, which is a TV show that just concluded its first season on FX, and in the US at least, you can find it on Hulu. That's where I watched it. But it's, the main character is a mercurial, mysterious developer, head of a company in Silicon Valley, played by none other than Ron Swanson himself. Okay.
Oh my God! Really?
Yes, which I thought was going to be a little strange, but it is in a way. But think, I guess, a little bit of Mr. Robot. This has a similar feel to it. It's about a Silicon Valley company that has a quantum computing solution that it's using for all sorts of products in the world, but there's also something more mysterious and nefarious going on in the back office, so to speak. And that's the part of the company called Devs, where they do work on other things which are not necessarily so altruistic. So I don't want to give away too much. I've watched about 4 episodes so far. Having watched all of Mr. Robot, I kind of like this because it's got that thriller feel to it. There's a mystery, and it's of course tech, so it's kind of fun. And there's this really creepy statue in this show that's a little girl who's maybe 2 or 3 years old, standing in the middle of the forest where this company is based. That's probably, I don't know, 50, 75 feet tall, really, really tall, standing taller than the trees, so maybe even taller than that. And it's just kind of this ominous statue that's kind of creepy and adds to the air of mystery around this company. So I highly recommend it. It's it's not super new, but if you haven't, if it passed you by, definitely worth checking out now that there aren't a lot of new shows coming out.
And I'm taking a look at the pictures, and there's Ron Swanson. He's a redhead with long hair and a beard.
Yes.
So sign me up. I'm going to watch this one. My final picks, just 2 short music picks. The 2 latest singles by the Prizefighter Inferno. So the Prizefighter Inferno is the solo project of Claudio Sanchez. Claudio Sanchez is the lead singer and guitar player of the prog rock band Coheed and Cambria.
Mm-hmm.
You've probably heard of this band before, coming from me somewhere. So he's been doing this solo project, the Prizefighter Inferno, for a few years now. And he recently came back with new music. So there's a new single called Death Rattle, and the other is a cover of Stand By Me. Not the Oasis song, but the B.B. King song. And yeah, they're really good songs. I really like that Death Rattle personally, and I really like what is done with the Stand By Me cover. So the electronic sounds and the drum machine sounds, like it's very unlike any other cover of this song, which has been covered hundreds of times.
Sure.
This is very much unlike anything else you probably heard so far. So, and I also love Claudio Sanchez and his voice. So I'm a huge Coheed and Cambria nerd, and the Prizefighter Inferno, I've always liked the different angle that he takes with this solo project. So both songs are available on Apple Music, and go check it out.
Yeah, these are great picks. You shared these with me a few days ago, and I've really enjoyed them too. All right, Federico, that's it for this week. I want to thank our sponsor again, and that is Mac Stadium. Go check out the post in the show notes that tells you all about Orca and has that code for 2 months for the price of one on a Mac Mini subscription. You can find me and Federico over at MacStories.net. Federico is at Viticci on Instagram and on Twitter. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees, JOHNVOORHWS. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.